Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really core part of information security.
We're looking at Clause 5 from the ISO 27002 standard, the 2022 version.
That's right. And Clause 5, it's all about organizational controls.
Exactly. Think of 27002 as this huge catalog of best practices, for keeping information safe. Clause 5 is where you lay the groundwork, organizationally speaking, how the company actually structures and manages security from the top down.
Right, so we're not diving straight into firewalls or like encryption techniques today.
Not yet, no.
This is more about the policies, the people, the responsibilities, the framework itself.
And it's crucial. This stuff applies to everyone. Small startup, massive corporation, doesn't matter.
That's a key point. These controls, they're foundational.
Absolutely. They provide that essential structure, that scaffolding for good security.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward. We're going to walk through each control in Clause 5.
Yep, one by one in the order they appear in the standard.
We'll unpack what they mean and why they actually matter practically. Sound good?
Sounds perfect. Let's get started.
Okay, first up, 5.1, Policies for Information Security. Seems like a logical place to begin.
It really is. This one gets right to the heart of it. You need defined policies.
Defined, approved, published,
Yeah.
communicated. The whole package.
Exactly. And not just one big overarching policy either. The standard talks about topic-specific policies too.
Yeah, you can't just have a vague, keep things secure statement. People need specifics.
Right. What are the rules for handling sensitive data? Who gets access to what systems? What's acceptable use?
And these need sign-off from management, right? They need to be visible, accessible.
And acknowledged. People need to confirm they've actually read and understood them. It sets the tone.
What I find interesting is the emphasis on keeping them current. They can't just sit there.
Definitely not. Review them regularly, the standard says, and especially if there are big changes.
Like changes in the business, new threats.
Or even just a shift in how people work, like more remote working. An outdated policy there is a huge risk.
Great example. So policies are living documents. They evolve. Okay, so this control is tagged #preventative. Makes sense. Stop problems before they start.
And it hits the big three. #confidentiality, #integrity, #availability.
From a cybersecurity concepts view, it's #identify knowing the rules and #governance.
Right. Within the #governance and ecosystem and #resilience domains, it's foundational.
Okay, 5.2. Information security roles and responsibilities. This feels obvious, but maybe it isn't always clear in practice.
You'd be surprised. The control itself is simple. Define and assign the roles and responsibilities for info security.
But if that's fuzzy,
Yeah.
who's actually accountable when something needs doing?
Exactly. If everyone thinks someone else is patching that critical system, well, it might not get patched.
Leads to gaps, vulnerabilities.
Clarity breeds accountability. Simple as that. When people know what their job is regarding security, things get done.
Makes sense. Okay, next, 5.3. Segregation of duties. This is a classic control principle.
Oh, absolutely. A cornerstone of internal control, not just in IT security.
So why is it so important to split up who does what for certain tasks?
It boils down to reducing risk. Risk of errors, yes, but also deliberate fraud or misuse of information.
How so?
Well, the idea is that no single person should control all steps of a really sensitive process. It builds in checks and balances.
Like needing two different people to turn keys for a vault.
That's a great analogy. You make it harder for one person to cause trouble, either accidentally or on purpose, without someone else noticing.
The standard gives some good examples here, like managing system changes.
That's a prime one. The person initiating a change shouldn't necessarily be the one approving it and the one implementing it. You want separation there.
Right, or requesting access versus approving and granting access. Keep those separate.
Definitely. Same principle applies. Prevent someone just giving themselves access to anything they want.
What about in development?
Good question. Separating developers who write the code from those who review it is common.
And also separating the dev team from the operations team who actually run the software in production.
Yes, that's another key segregation. Stops a developer pushing, say, bad code straight into the live environment without oversight.
Okay. Any other examples jump out?
Well, separating regular users of an application from the administrators who manage it, or even application users from database administrators, and separating those who design security controls from those who audit them. You need that independence for the audit to be meaningful.
These examples really show how that principle applies across the board. It's about layered oversight.
Exactly. Building in those checks.
Okay, let's look at 5.4. Management responsibilities. This feels like setting the direction from the top.
It absolutely is. This control puts the responsibility squarely on management.
For what, exactly?
For establishing, implementing, maintaining, and importantly, continually improving the entire information security management system, the ISMS.
So security isn't just an IT problem to solve.
Absolutely not. It needs leadership commitment, resources, direction. If the top brass doesn't care, it's hard to make security stick.
Management needs to champion it, integrate it into the business strategy. Makes total sense.
Without that top-level buy-in, security initiatives often just fizzle out.
Okay. Now 5.5 looks outwards. Contact with authorities.
Right. This is about building bridges with relevant external bodies.
Who are we talking about when we say authorities?
Law enforcement, regulators.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, regulatory bodies, data protection authorities, anyone with a legal or oversight role.
And why is keeping in touch with them so important?
Several reasons. It ensures information flows correctly. Maybe you need to report a breach or understand new regulations.
So it's about compliance, but also getting clarity from them.
Exactly. Understanding their expectations. It's also about knowing who to call and how before you need to.
Yeah, the guidance mentions defining who contacts them and the procedures for reporting incidents. You don't want chaos during a crisis. No, you need a clear plan, designated contacts, clear reporting lines. It's crucial for an effective response.
And the standard also notes organizations under attack might need to ask authorities for help, right, to take action against attackers.
That's a very important point. It's not just about reporting to them. It can be about seeking their active assistance.
This control has quite a few tags. Hashtag preventative by setting up contacts early, and hashtag corrective for incident response.
Covers all properties, hashtag confidentiality, hashtag integrity, hashtag availability.
It spans several cybersecurity concepts. Hashtag identify, hashtag resilience domains. It's pretty broad.
Okay, then 5.6 is similar but different. Contact with special interest groups.
Right. This is about connecting with the wider security community. Think security forums, industry groups, professional associations.
What's the benefit there? Staying updated.
Exactly. These groups are often where you first hear about new threats, vulnerabilities, emerging best practices.
You can learn from others' experiences, share your own, tap into collective intelligence. Precisely. It helps you stay informed, maybe find solutions faster, understand trends specific to your sector.
So it's about continuous learning, staying ahead of the curve. Again, it's hashtag preventive and hashtag corrective.
Helps you hashtag protect, hashtag respond, and hashtag recover by leveraging that shared knowledge.
Falling under hashtag governance and hashtag defense domains. Good stuff.
Next, 5.7. Threat intelligence. This sounds proactive.
It is. It's about actively seeking out and understanding the threats your organization might face.
So what does that actually involve? Collecting threat data.
It's a whole process. Collecting information, yes, but also analyzing it and then using those insights.
Insights about what? Potential attackers, their methods.
Exactly. Who might target you, why, how they operate, what vulnerabilities they exploit. The goal is actionable intelligence to anticipate and mitigate risks. The standard outlines some steps: planning, identifying sources, collection.
Processing, analysis, and then dissemination, making sure the right people get the intelligence in a useful format.
It's a cycle. Sources can be internal, like logs or external feeds and research.
Right. And that raw data needs filtering, correlating, making sense of it all.
And how does this tie into risk management, like ISO 27005 that's mentioned?
It feeds directly into it. Good threat intelligence helps you make much better risk assessments.
Because you have a clear picture of the likelihood and potential impact of specific threats.
Precisely. Which then helps you prioritize your security spending and choose the right controls.
Makes sense. This one is hashtag preventive, hashtag detective, and hashtag corrective.
Covers all properties and aligns with hashtag identify, hashtag detect, hashtag respond concepts.
Within hashtag defense and hashtag resilience domains. Very important for a mature security program.
Definitely. Okay, 5.8, information security in project management.
The build security and don't bolt it on principle.
That's exactly it. This control stresses integrating security right from the start of any project.
Why is doing it early so much better?
Because adding security later is almost always more expensive, more difficult, and frankly less effective.
You end up with awkward workarounds instead of proper secure design.
Right. By thinking about security during planning, design, development, testing, implementation, you build more secure solutions inherently.
Like designing a secure house foundation, not just adding locks later. It's hashtag preventive.
Covers the properties, aligns with hashtag protect and hashtag governance concepts.
Within hashtag governance and ecosystem and hashtag protection domains. Key takeaway. Integrate early.
Couldn't agree more. Now, 5.9 takes us to the inventory of information and other associated assets, a real fundamental.
You can't protect what you don't know you have.
That's the absolute core message here. You need a list.
A list of what, exactly? All information assets, databases, files.
Yes, information assets, but also the associated assets, hardware, software, services, even physical sites sometimes.
And crucially, each asset needs an owner assigned, someone responsible for its security.
Yes, ownership is key for accountability. The purpose is security preservation and assigning that responsibility.
What makes a good inventory, according to the standard?
It needs to be accurate, obviously, kept up to date, consistent across the organization.
Aligned with other inventories, maybe, like for finance or IT asset management.
Ideally, yes. And for tech assets, you need to know the components too, the database behind the app, the storage it uses, the software libraries involved.
It's not just listing, though. Classification comes into play, protection levels.
Right. You need to classify assets, know how they should be protected, review that, define acceptable use, manage access, plan for secure disposal.
And the asset owner drives a lot of that. Risk management for their assets.
They do. They have a central role. And the benefits go beyond just security insurance, finance, audits, incident response, BCP.
This one's tagged #preventive, covers the properties, and hits #identify and #asset management concepts.
Within #governance and ecosystem and #protection domains. Foundational stuff.
Okay, so once you know what assets you have, 5.9 is about acceptable use, setting the rules of engagement.
Exactly. You need documented rules for how people can actually use the information and associated assets.
What's the main goal here? Just stopping people doing bad things?
It's about managing risk, defining what's authorized, what users are responsible for, and what's strictly prohibited.
So it covers things like protecting against malware, keeping passwords safe.
Yes, all that. How to handle temporary copies, storage requirements, maybe labeling physical media, secure disposal procedures.
And this isn't just for company-owned kit, right? What about cloud services or personal devices used for work?
Good point. The rules need to cover those too, which often means having clear agreements with third parties about acceptable use and security.
Setting expectations clearly. It's #preventive, covers the properties.
And aligns with #protect and #governance under #asset management and #information protection capabilities. Domain is #protection.
Next, 5.11, return of assets, the leaver process.
When people change roles or leave the organization, they need to return company assets.
This is like basic admin, but there's a security angle, obviously.
A big one. Protecting the organization's assets. Laptops, phones, USB drives, security tokens, badges, even paper files.
Having a formal process ensures you get that stuff back. Prevents data loss or unauthorized access after they've left.
That's the goal. Physical assets are one thing.
But what about information on, say, a personal device they used? That's harder to return.
Exactly. The standard points this out. For that, you rely more on other controls, access rights management, maybe encryption, remote wipe capabilities.
So multiple controls work together. This one's #preventive, covers the properties.
Aligns with #protect and #asset management, domain #protection.
Okay, 5.12, classification of information, deciding how sensitive different data is.
Yes. Classifying information based on its security needs confidentiality, integrity, availability requirements, and any obligations to third parties.
Why classify? So you know how much protection it needs.
Precisely. You identify and understand its importance and the level of protection required. Not all data is equal.
And the classification level might depend on the potential impact if it was compromised.
Often, yes. The standard gives an example. A confidentiality scheme based on the harm caused by disclosure, from no harm up to serious impact on survival.
And this scheme needs to be consistent across the whole organization. Everyone needs to understand it.
Absolutely. It needs to be in procedures. People need training, so they apply the right controls based on the classification.
It's #preventive, covers the properties, and links to #identify and #information protection concepts.
Domains, #protection and #defense, setting the stage for proper handling.
Which leads nicely into 5.13, labeling of information, making the classification visible.
Exactly. Once classified, you need to label it according to that scheme.
What's the point of the label itself? Just making it look official.
It's about facilitating consistent handling. The label is a clear indicator of the sensitivity and any handling restrictions. It raises awareness.
So you need procedures for how to label things. Electronically with metadata, physically on documents or media.
Yes, aligned with your information model and ICT architecture. Systems might add metadata automatically.
And people need training on how to label things correctly and what the labels mean.
Crucially. And any system output containing sensitive info should carry the label 2, printouts, exports.
The guidance notes a potential downside, though. Labeling makes valuable stuff easier for attackers to find.
It's a trade-off, yeah. Clear labeling helps authorize sharing, but can also highlight high-value targets if security is breached elsewhere. Something to consider.
Tagged #preventive covers the properties, links to #protect and #information protection concepts, domain #protection.
Now, 5.14 deals with information transfer, getting data from A to B securely.
And this covers all types of transfer, electronic, physical media, even just talking.
Yes, the control calls for rules, procedures, or agreements for all types.
The goal being to maintain security during the transfer itself, protect against interception, unauthorized access.
Exactly. The rules need to cover protection measures, maybe encryption, access controls, traceability, non-repudiation, like a chain of custody.
Identifying contacts, defining responsibilities if something goes wrong, using agreed labels for sensitive stuff.
It's quite comprehensive. And there's specific guidance, too, for electronic transfer, encryption, secure protocols, care with public services, strong authentication.
Restrictions on using personal comms for work stuff, caution with SMSIM for critical info.
Right, for physical media.
Yeah.
Authorization, logging, secure packaging, protecting against damage, minimum standards for the media.
And even for verbal. Avoiding confidential chats in public or on insecure lines, being careful with voicemails.
It really covers the bases. This is #preventive, covers the properties.
Links to #protect and #information protection under the #information transfer capability. Domain #protection. Security in motion.
Okay, 5.15. Access control. Back to a real bedrock principle.
Establishing rules for physical and logical access based on business needs and security requirements.
The purpose is straightforward. Ensure authorized access, prevent unauthorized access. Least privilege principle again.
And the information owner should define who gets access to their assets.
Yes, they determine the requirements. These should be documented in a specific access control policy.
What should that policy cover? Things like who needs what, application security, physical access.
All of those. Also, need to know principles, how access aligns with information classification levels.
The guidance mentions overarching principles like need to know, need to use, and least privilege. Everything forbidden unless expressly permitted.
Right. It also touches on managing changes in permissions and the importance of defined, reviewed approval processes for access.
It's #preventive, covers the properties, links to #protect and #identity and access management. Domain #protection.
Building on that, 5.16 is identity management, the life cycle of digital identities.
So this is broader than just passwords. It's the whole shebang, creating, managing, deleting identities.
Exactly. Defining, documenting, managing the entire life cycle. Creation, assigning attributes, registration, issuance of credentials, suspension, revocation, deletion.
Why is this life cycle view so important?
Because it ensures only valid, authorized users have identities and associated access rights at any given time. It underpins access control, prevents orphaned accounts or lingering access.
Got it. The foundation for knowing who is accessing things.
Precisely. Which leads to 5.17, authentication information. The stuff used to prove that identity.
Passwords, biometrics, tokens.
Yeah.
The keys to the digital door.
Yep. The goal is to reliably verify the user's identity, managing this authentication info securely.
The standard gets quite specific here. Guidance on allocation. Like using strong temporary passwords initially.
Yes, verifying identity before issuing credentials, secure transmission, user acknowledgement, changing defaults, secure record keeping.
And user responsibilities are key too. Keep passwords secret, report compromises immediately, don't reuse them.
Absolutely. And requirements for password systems enforcing strong passwords, forcing changes, preventing reuse, not displaying them, secure storage and transmission.
It's very detailed, reflecting how critical authentication is.
It really is. Weak authentication undermines everything else.
Okay, 5.18, access rights. So identity is who you are, authentication proves it, and access rights are what you can do.
Perfect summary. Defining and authorizing access according to business requirements. The purpose. Ensure authorized access only.
And the guidance covers provisioning and revocation. Getting authorization from the asset owner, management approval maybe?
Yes. Granting access promptly when needed, but revoking it just as promptly when it's not needed anymore. Change of role, termination.
Keeping records, regular reviews of who has access to what, especially after role changes.
Right. The guidance also mentions putting sanctions for unauthorized access attempts into contracts.
And flags risks around termination, sabotage possibilities if management initiates it, data grabbing if someone resigns.
And a caution against just cloning access rights from another user. It often grants too much. Role-based access is preferred.
Makes sense. Assign rights based on the job role, not the individual.
Exactly. More manageable, more consistent.
All right, shifting gears slightly with 5.19, information security and supplier relationships. Very relevant today.
Hugely relevant. So many services are outsourced or rely on third-party products. Your security depends on theirs.
This control is about managing the risks that come with using supplier products or services.
Right. Defining and implementing processes to maintain an agreed level of security in those relationships.
And the considerations are broad. Supplier selection, contracts, monitoring, incident handling with suppliers.
Managing changes, secure information transfer, and secure termination, deprovisioning access, data handling, IP, returning assets, ongoing confidentiality.
It covers the whole supplier lifecycle from a security perspective.
And even considers business continuity if a key supplier fails. It's #preventive.
Covers the properties, links to #identify and #supplier relationship security concepts, domains, #governance and ecosystem, and #protection.
When 5.2 gets specific about addressing information security within supplier agreements, putting it in writing.
So establishing and agreeing on the relevant security requirements with each supplier based on the relationship.
Yes, the documented agreement is key for clarity on obligations. Purpose is maintaining that agreed security level.
What kinds of things should be in the agreement? Description of info accessed, classification mapping maybe?
Definitely. Also, legal regulatory requirements like data protection, PII, IP, security service levels, reporting requirements, defect resolution.
Backup, change notification, physical transfer controls, termination clauses, audit rights.
It's a comprehensive list. Embedding security into the contract is crucial.
Okay, 5.21 narrows the focus even more. Managing information security in the ICT supply chain. Technology-specific risks.
Right. This addresses risks related to ICT products and services suppliers specifically. Think hardware, software, cloud components.
The goal is protecting the integrity and security of your own information and ICT infrastructure.
So you need processes for assessing these ICT suppliers, putting security requirements in contracts.
Thinking about their secure development practices. Vulnerability management. Transparency like SBOMs, software bill of materials.
All of that. Also, validating what they deliver, maybe pen testing, identifying critical components and their origins, assurance they work as expected without unwanted extras.
And getting secure configuration guidance from them. It's about trusting, but verifying the tech you rely on.
Exactly. Understanding the risks in your tech supply chain.
Now, 5.22. Monitoring, review, and change management of supplier services. The oversight doesn't stop after signing the contract.
Absolutely not. You need to continually monitor, review, and manage changes to what suppliers are providing.
Why? To ensure they're staying compliant with the agreed security requirements.
Precisely. So regularly monitor their service delivery, periodically review their controls and compliance, manage any changes to the service carefully, assessing security impacts.
Verifying SLAs are met, having processes for incidents involving suppliers, and managing termination securely. It's ongoing vigilance.
That's a good way to put it. Continuous oversight.
Okay, 5.23 looks at a specific type of supplier, information security for use of cloud services. Increasingly critical.
Very much so. This control is about specifying and managing security when you use cloud services. Purpose: protect your assets in the cloud.
Need a specific policy for cloud use. Define how you manage the risks.
Yes, often as an extension of general external party management. The guidance covers a lot.
Like defining responsibilities, yours versus provider, acceptable use, data location ownership, access control, secure configuration.
Disaggregation in multi-tenant environments, managing controls in multi-cloud setups, incident handling, monitoring, exit strategies.
Understanding residual risks and making sure agreements cover architecture, access, malware protection, data location, incident support, subcontracting limits. It's detailed.
It needs to be. Cloud security has unique aspects.
All right, we're moving into incident management territory now. 5.24. Information security incident management planning and preparation. Be ready before it happens.
Crucial. Plan and prepare for managing incidents. Define and communicate processes, roles, responsibilities.
Goal is a quick, effective, consistent, orderly response, including communication.
Exactly. So define incident types and severity. Have communication plans, contact lists. Establish processes for detection, analysis, containment, eradication, recovery, post-incident learning.
Consider legal regulatory needs. Designate trained personnel. Agree objectives with management, like resolution times based on severity.
Have that playbook ready and rehearsed.
Then 5.25 is assessment and decision on information security events. Is this flicker of smoke actually a fire?
Good analogy. Assess security events and decide if they are actual incidents. Purpose. Effective categorization and prioritization.
Need an agreed scheme for that, based on consequences and priority?
Yes. A point of contact assesses events using the scheme. Responsible personnel do the assessment and document the results.
So you don't overreact to minor events, but escalate genuine incidents properly.
Precisely. Triage effectively.
Next, 5.26. Response to information security incidents. Once it is an incident, follow the plan.
Right. Respond according to the documented procedures. Purpose. Ensure efficient and effective response.
These procedures, covering communication, containment, eradication, recovery, post-incident steps, need to be established and communicated.
Yes. To everyone involved, consistency is key during a crisis.
And 5.27. Learning from information security incidents. Don't waste a crisis.
Absolutely. Use the knowledge gained to strengthen controls. Purpose. Reduce likelihood or consequences of future incidents.
So you need procedures to quantify incidents, types, volumes, costs, and review them to find causes and improvement opportunities.
Yes. Analyze what went wrong, how the response went, and what needs fixing. Continuous improvement loop.
Okay, 5.28. Collection of evidence. Sometimes needed for investigation or legal action.
Important, yes. Need procedures to identify, collect, acquire, and preserve information about events that could be evidence. Purpose. Support incident handling and potential legal action.
Guidelines here focus on integrity, chain of custody, documented procedures, authorized personnel.
All crucial. Minimize business impact during collection. Store evidence securely. Ensure legal admissibility. Make sure copies are identical. Verify tools used. Use qualified people. Address cross-border issues.
It's about doing it properly so the evidence stands up if needed.
Exactly. Forensic readiness, essentially.
Then 5.29. Information security during disruption. Security meets business continuity.
Right. Plan how to maintain information security during disruptions. Purpose. Ensure continued security when BCP kicks in.
So the BCP needs to consider security controls. Ensure they keep working during and after the disruption.
Yes. Security can't be forgotten just because there's a crisis.
And 5.3 complements this. ICT readiness for business continuity, making sure the tech can support the BCP.
Critical. Plan ICT readiness to ensure services are available as required during disruptions.
This involves a business impact analysis, BIA for ICT, identifying RPOs and RTOs.
Yes. Recovery point objectives, how much data loss is okay, and recovery time objectives, how fast services must be back.
Then select ICT continuity strategies, develop, implement, and test plans to meet those RTOs and RPOs.
Correct. Plans need performance capacity specs, RTOs and restoration procedures, RPOs, and data restoration procedures. ICT continuity underpins overall business continuity.
Okay, moving towards compliance aspects. 5.31. Legal, statutory, regulatory, and contractual requirements. Know your obligations.
Essential. Identify, document, and regularly monitor these requirements related to info security. Purpose. Comply with them all.
Need procedures to address them. Data protection, privacy, IP, crypto use.
Yes. And seek legal advice, especially for cross-border stuff or complex areas like crypto regulations. Consider contracts to clients, suppliers, insurance.
5.32 focuses specifically on intellectual property rights, protecting your own IP and respecting others.
Right. Implement procedures to protect IP rights. Purpose. Avoid infringement and protect your valuable assets.
Procedures like identifying IP, access control, copy restrictions, secure software acquisition, asset registers, license compliance.
All good examples. Also, managing license conditions, disposal procedures, complying with terms for public domain stuff, restrictions on duplicating commercial media.
IP includes copyright, designs, trademarks, patents, source code licenses. Lots to consider.
And risks if you fail to manage it properly, both infringing others' rights and losing your own.
5.33. Protection of records. Ensuring records are safe, reliable, and usable.
Yes. Protect records for compliance. Legal, regulatory, contractual, and societal expectations. Purpose: ensure authenticity, reliability, integrity, usability over time.
Needs guidelines on storage, handling, disposal, aligned with records management policy, defined retention periods.
Correct. Protection against unauthorized access, ensuring readability over time, maintaining metadata, regular review of policies.
A record is defined broadly: documents, data, digital, analog, and metadata gives context. ISO 15489 is referenced for more detail.
It's about preserving the integrity and accessibility of business evidence.
5.34 zeroes in on privacy and protection of PII. Hugely important.
Extremely. Implement procedures to protect personally identifiable information according to all requirements.
Purpose.
Meet privacy obligations, maintain trust.
Actions include policies, procedures, classifying PII, access controls, data minimization, purpose limitation, secure storage transmission, breach notification processes, regular reviews.
That covers the key actions, yes. A dedicated focus on privacy.
Nearly there. 5.35, independent review of information security, getting an objective look.
Important for assurance. Need independent reviews of your approach. Purpose: assess effectiveness, identify improvements.
Review should cover policies, procedures, controls. Can be internal audit or external experts.
Both have options. Should happen at planned intervals and after significant changes. ISO 27007 and 27008 offer guidance.
5.36, compliance with policies, rules, and standards for information security.
Yeah.
Are people actually following the rules?
Essentially, yes. Monitor and review compliance with internal policies, rules, and relevant external standards. Purpose: ensure practices are being followed. Regular checks address non-compliance.
And finally, 5.37, documented operating procedures, the how-to guides for security tasks.
Right. Prepare and maintain documented procedures for security-relevant processes. Purpose: ensure consistent, secure execution.
Needed when? Supporting policies, managing risks, meeting requirements, ensuring continuity for complex, critical new tasks for handover.
All good reasons. Procedures should specify who's responsible, steps for secure configuration, processing, backup, error handling, incidents, access control, physical security, software installs, network changes, data transfer, maintenance.
And these need review, updates, and authorized changes too. Keep them current and accurate.
Absolutely. They guide consistent action.
Wow. Okay, that's all 37 controls in Clause 5. It really does lay that essential organizational groundwork, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. From policies and roles right through to incident management, compliance, and procedures. It's the framework.
These organizational controls are the foundation, really.
Yeah.
The technical and physical controls build on top of this structure.
Couldn't have said it better. Without this organizational layer being solid, the tech controls are much less effective.
So for everyone listening, the challenge is to think about how these controls apply in your specific context, your business, your risks, your information.
Definitely. And now, maybe a final thought to chew on. Considering everything we've covered in Clause 5, this whole organizational layer, if you had to pick one single area that, if neglected, poses the biggest risk to an organization's security today, what would it be?
Ooh, that's tough. So when you're interconnected, is it lack of management buy-in? Poor incident response planning? Weak supplier management? Something to think about.
It is. No easy answer, but it highlights the importance of getting these fundamentals right.
We definitely encourage you to dig deeper into any controls that particularly resonated or seem like areas for improvement in your own setting. Check out the standard itself or related ISO guidance.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Clause 5 of ISO IEC 27002.2022. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.